I just saw your subhead.
What's up, everybody? It's Rebecca and Morgan of Supergirl Radio. Morgan, I think I muted you. See if you can unmute yourself. Perfect. So we are going to be talking about Year of the Villain, Hell Arisen. It's a long title, number 3, the third of 4, hopefully. I don't know.
Question mark?
Question mark. So we'll be talking about that and getting into the episode. We don't really have a lot of news. The only news that came out this week was the Siegel and Schuster families, I think, are still trying to do the lawsuit with the new Superman movie coming out, but TBD on that. So not really much to report. There's some litigation happening, but I'm not sure how that's going to go. So we're not going to talk about it until like things are finished, maybe. Or if it affects anything in any way for the Superman movie. So we are just going to be doing a comic book review and just keeping it simple for this one because everything else in the comic is so complicated. So maybe we should just keep the discussion in the episode as simple as we can. So Morgan, if you are ready, you have the doc, I assume.
I think.
Yeah. All right. Well,
if I ever am.
I do have something. I did do a little extra homework because of an editor's note that happened in this issue. So I can't wait to show you what happened.
I don't want to spoil things, but I did get that editor's note.
That's exciting.
There was an editor's note in mine. I was like,
what? Sometimes you haven't gotten them.
Often I haven't.
So I dug into the issue, and maybe hopefully by the end of issue 4, I will have done some background on the Batman Who Laughs. I have not done that yet. But I've noticed that a lot of the issues that correspond to the series are free. So that's
interesting.
It's probably because they can't get anybody to buy it, is my guess.
No, this one? This one's a winner.
So if you want to do some extra homework with this series, a lot of these issues are free. So check them out. So I guess we'll go ahead and get started if we're ready to go. And we will get into the discussion.
McGurk! I love typing.
Not mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira. I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom. Because
she looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. So fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Yes! Welcome to Supergirl Radio Rebirth, your source for Supergirl comics that started with DC Rebirth. My name is Rebecca Johnson.
I'm Morgan Glennon.
And for this episode of the podcast, we are live and wired to review Year of the Villain, Hell Arisen number 3, which was written by James Tynion IV with art by Steve Epting and Javier Fernandez. Nick Filardi was the colorist. Travis Lanham was the letterer. Riccardo Federici did the variant cover. Ben Mears was the assistant editor. Alex Antone was the editor. And Jamie S. Rich was the group editor for this one. And I can imagine that being an editor of this series might be a challenging thing. So
yes, I would imagine that as well.
Kudos to all these guys for trying to keep everything straight, because I imagine some of them are the editors who have to write the editor's notes. Very important stuff in these comics.
if you buy the collected edition, you don't always get them, but occasionally you'll get one as a little treat, just like I did this issue, and I was like, what?
It really fills in the gaps
When I
of
saw
when you need it.
When I saw it, I think I said "score" out loud. How often we'll be talking, and you'll be like, "Yeah, did you get that editor's note?" And I'll be like, "What editor's note?" And like I was like, "Yeah, in your face, I know the editor's note." Such a small thing to be excited about, but you know,
You gotta take the win for what it is.
small
A win is a
moments
win.
of joy.
Well, we are going to get right into discussing this issue, and the description for this one reads, quote, Apex Lex Luthor's first run-in with the infected didn't go as planned, and the Batman who laughs' influence is continuing to spread. Now Lex must find out who in the world can think like the Batman who laughs, and there are only two folks who come to mind. The first is Batman, who probably has his own ideas for Lex. The other is the Joker, who also likely has his own ideas, but who maybe wants to see this twisted doppelganger sent back to the dark multiverse where he came from, I guess is what it's supposed to say. In the description, it just says to the dark multiverse he came from. I think they meant to put where he came from. And it ends saying it's a gamble Lex has to take because the infected are gearing up for round 2, unquote. You could make the argument maybe there didn't need to be a round 2. Maybe they could have just wrapped it up in the first round, I feel like. Why did we need a round 2?
Yes, you absolutely could make that argument. And I would argue you should make that argument because it's, again, this is presumably a 4-issue series. Now, I did skip ahead after I finished this issue because it was such a page turner. I was like, I must know. And I did notice that the next issue does say the conclusion.
Oh,
which gave me hope again. I felt for the first time in a while a sense of hope, a sense of excitement. The end is nigh, I said to myself. So yeah, in a 4-issue series, why did there need to be a round 2?
That's what I was gonna ask you this towards the end of our conversation, but since we're here, do you think we will get to see how Supergirl becomes uninfected by issue 4? That I haven't skipped ahead, so I don't know. It does seem like Lex Luthor is trying to figure out the situation with the toxin and the Batman who laughs serum thing that infects everybody. He seems to be scientifically trying something to figure that out.
He's on the move. He's figuring things out. Every issue I do start to lose a little hope. But this one I was like, okay, we're getting into like how he infected them, which I'm still not clear about, but whatever. Who cares? And how he can uninfect them. Presumably, I feel like that is the undercurrent of it. Yes. And I was like, okay, all right, I guess I can see how we would get to the uninfection by next issue. But I'm never quite sure. That's sort of the fun of this series is come in, you're like, this is going to show me how Supergirl gets uninfected. And then like 3 issues in, you're like, maybe?
My biggest fear is that we get to the end of issue 4 and it's like, we still have
another
no
editor's
idea.
note. And we find out how Supergirl gets uninfected in The Villain Still Villain. Hell declined. I'm like, I don't know what it could possibly be.
12-issue series.
12 issues. Most of it's just Joker. And you're like, no, please. Please, I can't do this anymore.
What if that happened and we were reading this for Supergirl Radio and then we just went down this path that just had no Supergirl in it whatsoever? Because I feel like a lot of this story is like a Lex Luthor story.
Yeah. 2 months from now, we're like, we are a Supergirl podcast.
We think we are still, but we're not really sure. We've been sent down a couple of rabbit holes.
But we have spent 4 months talking about Lex Luthor.
And we still don't know how Supergirl gets uninfected.
In some ways, it's a lot like Supergirl, the TV show.
I mean,
remember those seasons when Lex just took over? It's like that, but this podcast is happening right now to us. Lex.
The best
He always
part of
gets
Lex
nuts.
on the Supergirl TV series is he was great in season 4.
It's true.
And
he
then-
was.
And then season 5 happened. You're like, I don't know that I need Lex Luthor here. And then by season 6, it was like, can we send him back?
Season 6, you're like, listen, Ducky Lex Luthor, honestly, you're killing it. But could we find something for him to do that isn't this? Anything, please?
Anything else would be great.
And yeah, that's kind of how I feel about this. Like, I came in to find out how Supergirl got uninfected, and then it's a lot of Lex being like, I've got smart person plans because I'm smart. And I'm like, Lex, if you have to say it this many times, people are going to start thinking maybe you're not that smart.
And that does come up with infected Jim Gordon, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
Mind the Gap does say in the chat, and Mind the Gap has been really our Yoda throughout this process. Mind the Gap says this series leads to Dark Knight's death metal, but Supergirl doesn't play any role. So maybe we won't be going down a weird rabbit hole that will take up half a year.
I'm hoping. I do feel like Dark Knight's death metal sounds like on the surface it would be fun. Like all the infected start a band or something.
Wouldn't that be fun? I would read that.
But I know that's not where it's going, Like I just know that in my heart. Like I tell myself, oh, that could be fun. Like that could what a fun little treat. And it's just going to be more of this. It's going to be like Perpetua has made a virus that if you take this virus and you flip it and reverse it, it's like, no, please, no more.
So just real quick, since we're here, if infected Supergirl was in the Dark Knight's death metal band, would she be the lead singer? Would she play an instrument? Because I feel like if she sang, would that literally blow people's minds? Because she has would she have like a super strong voice that would have like a lot of decibels and be very hard to hear?
I don't think it'd be like Black Canary level dangerous.
Yeah.
Because that would be very dangerous.
Black Canary can make a Kryptonian's ears bleed. So
she can. Yeah. She knows what she's about.
Yeah.
But I do think it would be dangerous. To have her up there, especially if she's like, really getting into it. She'd have to like modulate. But I could imagine like, maybe her on the drums. She can go so fast.
Well, but what if she didn't know her powers and she just ruined all the instruments?
No,
that would be her own strength.
Then she gets kicked out. They're like, I'm so sorry, but we really want to get this record contract.
New Rachel in the chat asks, who else would be the lead singer if it wasn't her? I almost think maybe it would have to be Deathbringer.
Deathbringers, I mean, listen, that's a cool name. First of all, if you're introducing your Dark Knight's death metal band and you're like, here we go, we have Deathbringer. We have like, what was Hawkman's is like,
Sky Tyrant.
Sky Tyrant. Kara. And you're like, wait, what? I'm never gonna get over this. Like, at least my girl could get a cool name. Like, this is not cool.
So I don't know that we're gonna get to see the heavy metal band version of this.
I don't feel like that's the way they're going with it.
But that would be pretty amazing. We did briefly mention Jim Gordon and his taunting of Lex Luthor and some of the things that happened at the very beginning of this issue. And basically, Jim Gordon is telling Lex Luthor, like, you overcomplicate things. You want to think things are more sophisticated than they are, and you want to make everything such this big puzzle, and you really should simplify things or else you're not going to win. And it almost sounded like a pep talk. He was like, you need to be Lex Luthor. What are you doing with all these powers and things? So Jim Gordon seemed to make Lex Luthor sort of rethink how he was going about this. So I thought that was really interesting. That the Jim Gordon, even though he was infected, he seemed to be getting through to Lex Luthor and send him on a different journey through this whole process, which then leads him to the Joker, because the Joker comes in and actually saves Lex Luthor from all of the infected heroes. So Morgan, what are your thoughts about the Joker entering the scene and saving Lex Luthor?
I like the idea that that in Gotham they like sort of see all the shenanigans that are happening over at Metropolis, like Lex being like, "I'm gonna blow up this train, and that train is carrying this thing, which will blow up a separate thing, which will blow." It's like a Rube Goldberg machine where it's like everything's going into everything else, and at the end of it, I will kill Superman, and every one of these steps have to go exactly right, but they will because I'm smart, and when they do, I will kill Superman. And over in Gotham, they're like, I guess another bank just got held up. We should go, I guess, deal with that. This is sort of the crime that we have over here. No one's no one's doing all of this. And like I thought it was a really funny observation from Jim Gordon that he was like, yeah, you make things too complicated. Like here in Gotham, here on the mean streets of Gotham, we mostly have regular crime. And you would be surprised at how often it just gets accomplished, Lex. Like if you took like 10 steps out of your plan, like maybe you would get somewhere. And Lex was like, harsh, but fair.
Yeah, and basically, what doesn't Lex infected Jim Gordon? Doesn't he say something about how if Lex came to town and did all of those things, Batman would just beat the crap out of him?
Yeah, which I thought was funny, but I was also like, I mean, he's up against Superman, so I don't think that is the issue. Although I will say Batman has like I feel like less of a I don't know, less ability to deal with aggravation than Superman does. Superman was like, Lex, you again. We've talked about this, and Batman would just be like, oh my god, I can't. I guess I'm gonna have to beat you up. So I do think that he pegged that correctly. That Batman has less patience for these kind of shenanigans.
He would just beat him up and go on about his day. I did think it was an interesting way to bring, and a very fitting way to bring Joker into this comic by starting with infected Jim Gordon, who did talk a lot about Gotham. And in here in this issue, waltzes into the room, the Clown Prince of Crime from Gotham City. So I thought that was a good way to bring him in, because we are reading a story about the Batman Who Laughs, who is this dark multiverse version of Batman. So who better to bring in to try to defeat this guy but Joker, who has spent all of his time trying to defeat Batman. So I thought that was actually pretty fitting. You could argue that maybe Joker is in too many stories and is the focal point of too many stories. But here I think it's appropriate.
I thought it was fine. I mean, we've got a story where it's Batman who has been Joker-fied, essentially, as my subtext says at the bottom. I have two by this storyline. By the next issue, by the next episode, I'm gonna have like the full Joker like Batman Who Laughs costume on, and I'm just gonna be like, "Get me out!" All the spikes everywhere. So I think it makes sense to bring in Joker from that perspective. That like it's a different version of Joker who basically created these like dark universe Batman Who Laughs kind of characters. So it would make sense that Joker is somehow involved in getting rid of them. I can accept that. Yes, Joker is in a lot of things all the time, but at least this time it makes sense that they would be like, we need to bring in our ringer. It's Joker. And you're like, okay, really? That guy's not good at planning, but all right.
He doesn't really plan things.
He's not a planner.
He's total chaos. He's the opposite of Lex Luthor, actually. Joker, I think, would keep things very simple, and Lex Luthor would overcomplicate everything. So I think it's really interesting that pretty typically in stories where Batman and Superman are teamed up, you will often see Lex Luthor and Joker teamed up. It happens in like Batman Hush. You see it on the crossover that happened in the DCAU with the Superman the animated series and the Batman the animated series versions of the characters. So this is something that happens quite a bit. So it's unsurprising to see Joker and Lex Luthor team up, but they do here, and I think it's pretty interesting because Joker saves Lex from the infected heroes led by Jim Gordon. And then, and this is the most important part of this issue, is that Joker, to get away from the infected heroes, he uses this character named Warp, who he then basically tells to go kill himself, which was really
uncool.
Not cool at all. But he takes Lex Luthor to his hideout, his evil villain lair, and he interacts with some characters that we love here on Supergirl Radio, that we talk about quite a bit because of their connection to My Adventures with Superman. We get to see Monsieur Mallah and the Brain. What did you think about that?
This is hands down my most. This is my highlight of the issue. I'm just going to go ahead and be honest. When I heard that Monsieur Mallah and the Brain was there, I was like, great, this is going to be a great issue. And then they didn't play a part in it, and I was so sad. And I was especially sad that they like left them in those lost cages, like Kate and Sawyer. It's like, listen, you don't leave the husbands in the cage. Let them out. Let them free.
They didn't even have fish biscuits that they could get out.
They didn't even have fish biscuits for Monsieur. And I feel like Monsieur Mallah would like a fish biscuit.
Yeah, and the Brain looked very different.
The Brain
looked very tall and like thin.
The Brain looks like the Punisher mask for some reason, and I don't really understand. Like, things have been tough for the Brain. You can tell.
So we did get to briefly see Monsieur Mallah and the Brain, which was a ton of fun. Unexpected for me in this series.
I did not expect such a star-studded guest turn. I was like, oh my God, we're getting the heavy hitters, the A-list here, Mr. Mallah and the Brain. And then we didn't get any more of them. And when they leave, it's like, yeah, make sure you feed him. The Joker says, like, as he's leaving. And I was like, I don't feel like anyone's all that committed to that.
And nobody seemed to take that serious.
Is anybody going to let Mr. Mallah out? The Brain, perhaps? You could let him out.
So we did get to briefly see Monsieur Mallah and the Brain, but they didn't play much of a role. Maybe they do in some other issues that are connected to this series. But I would think, based on what we saw with My Adventures with Superman, if you needed somebody to create a black hole or do something super sciencey, those would be the characters to help you out. I think.
Yes. I do wonder, like, I feel like it would be kind of a fun thing to have them be instrumental in like coming up with a cure for the infection. Like Lex could maybe be like, well, I do have access to this super smart monkey and this brain, this literal brain. Like, maybe they can help me. I don't feel like they're gonna play a part in the next issue, but man, I would love it, especially at the end of the issue where he's like, I've got my villains to back me up. And I was like, where's Mr. Mallah? Where's the Brain? I wanted to see Mr. Mallah like punch somebody in the face with the Brain, just like
just knock him out.
Full Punisher mask to the face. And I was like, this is uncool. Like, you were rounding up villains. You could have rounded them. They were right there. They're right there in that cage. No fish biscuits at all.
I think they could be useful. So that was probably the highlight for me as well.
Yeah, I figured when I saw them both pop up, I was like, I know what we're gonna spend like 10 minutes talking about, even though it like barely relates to the story.
It was only a couple of panels and didn't really affect any of the storyline, but it was delightful. So Joker and Lex are teaming up here. One thing I did have a question about for you, Morgan, was when they go to the Joker lair and Mercy has been sort of kidnapped by Punchline, who I don't know if you know about the
I have
Punchline
no
character.
idea. Yeah,
So-
I was going to ask you about that character and the character who, I guess, R.I.P. to that guy, Warp. I wasn't sure if Warp was like a character that I should have heard about.
So I didn't look up Warp, so we'll have to do some digging on Warp. But Punchline is a character who I think was introduced in DC Rebirth, and she is like the new Harley Quinn. She's infatuated with the Joker. She's a very sadistic kind of character, kind of in love with the Joker. So not Harley Quinn, but kind of like Harley Quinn. I don't know. We can really quickly look up Warp and see what his deal is. It looks like he's a character who's been around for a while. First appeared in the new Teen Titans number 14, December 1981. Oh, created by some heavy hitters, George Perez and Marv Wolfman. Let's see. Yeah, new Teen Titans character. Warp is a French supervillain and a member of the Brotherhood of Evil, which they mentioned that Monsieur Malat and the Brain were part of. In Infinite Crisis, he joins Alexander Luthor Jr.'s Secret Society of Supervillains. In Salvation Run, Warp is killed when Lex Luthor uses him and other villains to power his teleportation device, which self-destructs. However, Warp is resurrected in the New 52 reboot. So that would have been before Rebirth. So he can fly and open portals between any two locations of his choosing. However, overuse of this ability exhausts him. So he is a teleporting villain, it seems like, from way back. He's been around for quite some time. So good to see him in this comic, although his appearance is pretty brief.
and brutal.
And final. Yes.
I guess RIP to him again. Rachel did. Is it the same Warp who was in Teen Titans? And it sounds...
Possibly. I would imagine so.
Yeah, that sounded to me like yes, but...
Yes. I cannot confirm, but by given the new Teen Titans connection, I would assume so. But yeah, so Punchline is kind of like the new Harley Quinn. And in that scene, when Punchline has Mercy Graves sort of by the neck, there are some Joker goons who are doing something with teddy bears. And I wasn't quite sure what that was about. I didn't know if you had any thoughts.
Let me go. Yeah, let me go try to find it.
There are some Joker goons who have like Joker masks on, and they have some teddy bears on the table. And I
have no idea what's going on in that Joker layer. It's pretty weird. All the Joker stuff is pretty weird, if I'm being honest. Yes, they do look like are they sewing up some teddy bears? They seem
maybe they're like smuggling something in the teddy bears.
I could see that. They seem unconcerned about like sort of the main action. They're like really into their job. It's like a Santa's workshop situation.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
I can't be about all that's going on around me. I got to be about this teddy bear. This is a bear hospital. This is a bear emergency I'm dealing with. Yeah, I have to imagine it's like they're smuggling something and they're either like taking it out or putting it in. But it is very funny.
I like the idea of them just repairing teddy bears.
Yeah.
What if like little kids drop off their teddy bears at this like state fair ground,
this empty state fair ground,
and the Joker goons are just out of the kindness of their hearts repair these little kids' teddy bears.
It's like well known around Gotham. It's like, yo, your teddy bears got messed up. Drop off Mr. Snuggles outside of the empty fairgrounds. And then like a dude in a clown mask is gonna come. Don't be scared of him because he's gonna fix your bear up real good.
Like the word on the street is like they really are good at what they do.
They're like maestros at fixing. They can fix any kind of toy. Teddy bears are their specialty. But man, what they've done with the American Girl doll, you wouldn't even believe. Samantha, brand new. Yeah, I noticed that too, and I was like, what's happening?
It was strange. But I did want to make note of that just in case it comes back into play later. I did, since we're still here with Joker, I did think that it was interesting that the Joker obviously has beef with the Batman Who Laughs. He doesn't like any kind of Batman, I don't guess. And so he makes mention that he doesn't even want to speak about the Batman Who Laughs, doesn't even want to mention his name. And I thought it was interesting that Lex took note of this. He told Joker, he says, you're not going to let a Batman rule the world. It's not in you to allow that to happen. And he also says, who else but the Joker would know how to kill a Batman? So Lex is obviously interested in teaming up with the Joker because he sees the ability to use him to help defeat the Batman Who Laughs. So he sees this as a very beneficial partnership with the Joker. So I'll be curious to see how that does that continue in issue 4?
It's
I
not
don't
the
know.
vibe I got because it seemed like he was saying to Joker, like, you can't possibly let the Batman who laughs, even if he's been Joker-fied, even if he's on the dark side now, like, you can't let him win. And Joker was like, maybe you're right. And then Lex is like, cool, into your mind I go. And I was like, wait, what? And then here's where I got sketchy in the issue. It seems like Lex is diving into the Joker's mind. Now, is he like doing this with his mind powers that he got from Perpetua, or or is he? But he's also doing open brain surgery, so it's very confusing.
His head is cut open, but I also don't know if that's just a visual metaphor.
I truly wasn't sure because after we see him like on a table with his like head cut open, you see his brains and everything's like really weird and
Very psychedelic.
Then we get back. His head seems fine, and he's back in the thing. Presumably the teddy bear fixers are still fixing. It's changed. Like, what's her name? Punchline is still holding Mercy. It like doesn't seem like much time has passed. So I guess this was like all in his head, but I found the visuals to be a little bit confusing. I was like, I feel like there's like a better way of showing that Lex is like in his mind using like, I don't know, mind powers than like, I'm going to get in your brain, like actually in your brain. Like I'm going to pop the top off your head and look at your brain. I was like, when I thought it was really happening, I was like, how is this helping?
So maybe that's the only reason Lex finds the Joker useful is to dig into his brain and try to see what he knows about the serum or the Batman Who Laughs' infection to see if he could figure out a way to reverse it. So it does seem by the end of this issue, because I don't know if the Joker will come into play in issue 4, because it seems like by the time Lex has a showdown with the Batman Who Laughs and the infected heroes at the Hall of Justice at the end of the issue, it seems like Lex is back on his own. Well, his own leading the other villains. So I don't know if the Joker is still considered part of that team up or part of that group. But it seems like Lex maybe just used his brain and then ditched him. I don't know how that
was for sure the vibe I got, was that like Lex only wanted him for his brain. His actual brain. And then once he got in there and got what he wanted, he was like, okay, bye. And then it seemed like Joker was like, okay, well, I'm taking off. Make sure to feed Monsieur Malah. and then seemingly bounced. He's like, this place has been compromised. First, my minions have been repairing all of the children's bears. I've told them not to tell the whole city about that. We've got constant bears at the gate constantly. And I feel like they know where we are. And second, you brought basically people down on top of me. They're going to know about our new hideout. So like, I'm leaving. So I didn't get the impression that Joker was going to be back in the story, which I was like, all right, that was like a lot of buildup of Joker popping in for not a lot of payoff.
It was a lot of Joker, and I felt like because it was a nice way to bring Joker into a story with the Batman Who Laughs, I was kind of hoping Joker would have some sort of bigger role in defeating the Batman Who Laughs. I think that would be really, really unique for him to be the hero in this situation. But now that you mention it, it does seem like he might be bouncing out of here. I don't know.
Yeah, I was kind of like, is that it? Is that all? And again, we haven't read the concluding issue. So we don't know. He could pop back, and I wouldn't actually be surprised if he doesn't pop back up, but I feel like it's not part of the plan to have, like, Alexa's plan to have him pop back up. I feel like where we leave off in this issue, the Joker is sort of off to do his own thing. Lex got what he wanted from the Joker, and he's sort of like moving on with his other villain friends. He didn't want to like invite the Joker to the villain party. He didn't want to invite Mr. Malah or the Brain to the villain party. And I'm like, how exclusive can this be if Mr. Malah's not there?
Agreed. I mean, he's going to bring the party. He and the Brain.
He and the Brain always bring the party.
They are the party.
Well established.
So before I get to some of the things I wanted to bring up, Morgan, is there anything else that you had questions about or wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, in theory, I had questions about the whole thing. But I had questions about how the infection, how that worked, and how they were saying it worked, and I was like a little bit sketchy on that. They pulled out so much stuff in here, so much like comic book science logic, and I was like, we're going real like Lex. We're going real complicated when it could have just been the Joker developed a serum. It was like the Joker developed a thing that if he died, it would Jokerify the person who was with him, and then the infection would take hold, and then but by the time the person realized it, it would be too late, and the toxin suppresses the moral centers of the brain, and you could just be like, it's a doodad that makes you evil.
Yeah.
Frankly, those two things are basically the same to me. Like, none of it is based in reality, so like we don't have to do all this, you know?
We don't have to overthink it. And I feel like the Joker could have just told him that pretty simply.
I don't know how. I also don't know how, if this is an alternate version of Joker that did this to the Batman who laughs, how would this be in this version of Joker's head? Do they all share like a brain meld? Is it like a League of Lois things, but if the League of Lois were all sort of like hived together,
like they all had the same memories.
Like, are they the Borg? Like, what's happening here? Like, why would this version of Joker know anything about what the other version of Joker did? Like, are we supposed to believe that this is a plan that this version of Joker has also come up with, but has just never managed to get right or implement? Like, the brain thing ended up raising more questions than it answered for me, where I was like, well, now you got me thinking about it, and I really just wanted to go on this ride with you, but now you're forcing me to ask questions about how this is working, and like the inner, how does it make sense that this Joker would know anything about the plans of some other Joker? It's like, why would that be the case? I don't know. I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation I'm missing.
Could you say that the Joker toxin works the same in every universe, and every Joker knows how the Joker toxin works?
Every Joker has this in their back pocket. Only one of them has used it. I guess you could establish. I feel like then, though, if you're doing that, you do have to like put a line in about it, and God knows there's enough lines about like how this toxin works, and like the backup plan for how this toxin would like go into effect. And I was like, and you couldn't put a line in about how this Joker would know about it?
Seems like there was enough time.
Feels like there was some time.
Some real estate to put that in there.
Well, Lex was dissecting the brain metaphorically, but also very much on the page.
Maybe literally and physically.
Who knows if it was literal or metaphorical? I don't know. I certainly didn't know. And then my other big question had to do with the Batman Who Laughs, which we get to see a little bit of him and his evil plan. And I was like, hey, what's up, bud? Haven't seen you in a hot second. And he is in some sort of like lab kind of environment, and he's looking at a dude in a tube. Never a good sign for the dude in the tube.
Nope.
And he says something about, so the dude in the tube was basically my question. I've never heard of him. His name is Nix Utan or Uotan. And he's a super judge and the last of the monitors. Now, I don't know anything about Nix, and but
you know the monitors, right?
I do know the monitors. I know them well. So from the many crises,
from the many versions of Crisis,
from the many crises.
So it seems like they're playing up like a crisis something or other in this storyline.
No.
The DC fandom wiki says Nyx Uatan is the last of the monitors, a lost race of super beings. Living as a regular teenager when the multiverse is in need, he transforms into his alter ego, the Super Judge, which the issue mentions. Long ago, the proto-monitor Novu, which is more of the monitor that we know about, had a son. So this is Novu's son, who became the sole survivor of his kind when the entire monitor race died. This youth took it upon himself to guard the entire multiverse from unimaginable threats. So I imagine
Is
based
this like
on
a
that,
Shazam situation where when he turns from a normal teenager into a monitor-like being, he becomes like more of a grown man? Or are they just drawing this teenager as like a 35-year-old? Like what's he looks like older in this. I wouldn't have guessed if you showed me the panel, I would have been like, what a teen.
yeah, it says as a regular teenager, when the multiverse is in need, he transforms into the Super Judge.
It's one Jack teenager.
Yeah, so it seems as if the Batman who laughs is he holding the Super Judge hostage or prisoner so that he does not stop the plans of the dark multiverse?
I guess so. There seems to be a lot of multiverse nonsense going on in this
lot
one,
of multiverse
honestly.
nonsense.
And so, yeah, I guess you would have to like kidnap a monitor and be like, I know none of us like it when this happens, but here we are. I see that Mind the Gap says that's Nyx Uatan from Grant Morrison's Final Crisis and Multiversity. Just a regular working guy, but he's also a monitor. So maybe at some point in the comics, he grows up from a teen to an adult, and this is the adult version we're seeing.
Mentioning that Grant Morrison had something to do with this, that really checks out for me. That Grant Morrison, he is a person of wild imagination. I'll just say that based on some things he consumes, and things get a little crazy when Grant Morrison writes comics. So that checks out for me. But yeah, so I guess they're playing up the multiverse crisis factor in this, having another monitor, the last surviving soul monitor of the race of people, or the monitor group of characters. So that's something new to me. I did not know that Novu had a son, so that's good to know. I didn't know the monitors could procreate, so it was also something new to me. I thought they were kind of like robots initially, but I guess they're just regular working guys like this guy.
Where did he meet Mrs. Monitor? Perhaps we'll never know. Now that we mention it, it does. Joker does say, "I'll teach this universe what a crisis really feels like." And when I read that panel, I let out a deep and abiding sigh. You can only take this thing so many times, you guys. I just want to put that out there. Like, it's not a big, exciting event if it happens like every other year.
All the time. Also, as Supergirl fans, we don't love that.
It didn't do great things for Supergirl as a show,
Pretty much never. Well, even she dies in the comics, the comic version of Crisis. She died in the
not great for her.
She died in the Tomorrowverse version of Crisis.
Not great for her.
For some unknown reason. Like, she didn't have to die, but they killed her anyway. And then on the show, Crisis on Infinite Earths royally screwed over season 5 of the show.
Things weren't going great after that.
It was not going great to begin with, and then it just really screwed everything up and made everything nonsensical, and we didn't know what was happening anymore. So,
no idea why it had such a big effect on Supergirl and like such a minimal effect on some of the other shows.
So Crisis is not usually a welcome storyline around here on
No,
Supergirl Radio.
Yes.
We
So,
could do without it.
so when you're pitching us a crisis, we're usually going to be like, nah, no thanks.
A hard pass. We will
That's
pass
going to
on
be a
that.
pass. Yeah. So I was like, "Ugh, not more crisis nonsense. Like haven't we all moved past this as a people?
Yeah, so not thrilled about it, but it does seem to be playing some kind of role. The only thing, well, there are two things I wanted to mention. So one, what I like about this series is that I think uh maybe the plot line is not written all that well because it is a little confusing. That's probably user error because I'm not reading every issue that's associated with this. So
That's fair. A
yeah,
lot
so
is that I'm like, I'm not looking up all this other stuff. I'm
things
not
could
following the notes.
things could be connecting the dots in other issues that I'm not reading. So I can't hate it too much because maybe it's just something I haven't read. But what I think is interesting about these issues that we have been looking at is that the dialogue I feel is really clever because it feels very meta to me. It feels like it's trying to set up the end and it's trying to foreshadow things. So in this issue, the Batman Who Laughs says, "You can feel it's getting close now, can't you? The end, I mean." So he's really foreshadowing like we are getting towards the end of whatever this is because the end is apparently, we think, issue number 4, which is the
One
next
issue
one
away.
we'll be reading. And also the Batman Who Laughs also says in this issue, he says, "I'm ready to end this." So it seems like we're getting to the end of this story. And then Joker has a couple of lines that I thought were really good. He tells Lex, he says, "Our stories don't work when they get this big." And I thought the reason why I thought that was cool is that in the issue, the Joker makes the case like, you and me, Lex, we're not supposed to go to space. We're not characters who go to space. We're
ground level villains.
We're ground level. We do things in the city. We hang around our hometowns. That's what we do. Those are our
teddy
strings.
bears.
We are really helping the little children of the cities out. we are fixing the teddy bears. But I really liked that because I think that's very true. I think you could put Lex Luthor in space, but I think he does better when he's in Metropolis hating Superman. Same thing with the Joker. I think he works better when he's out and about around Gotham causing chaos. So I really enjoyed the meta nature of those pieces of dialogue. And then Joker also says something that I thought was kind of like in the story, kind of a wink and nod. He says, like, because that's my story, that's what I'm supposed to do. So the Joker is very aware of who he is as a character and what his place is in the DC universe and in the Batman universe. And then he also foreshadows something, I guess, that will happen maybe as we go along in this story. Joker tells Lex, you're going to survive it because you are Lex Luthor. So there's this idea that Lex may survive the situation. Maybe he even wins because he plays to his strengths as Lex Luthor. He's got all these superpowers now that was given to him by Lady Perpetua, but maybe it's not the powers he needs. Maybe it's his intellect and his Lex Luthor-iness that will get him to defeat the Batman Who Laughs. So even
would you say that the power was inside of him all along?
I would say that. What did he need all those powers for?
What if he just believed in himself?
That's all he needed.
That's all you needed, Lex. Lex wakes up in the morning. He looks in the mirror and he's like, I can do it and I'm worth it. And then he does great evil. He just needed a little daily affirmation from the Joker.
He just needed to pump himself up. So even though this story is a lot and I don't know everything that's happening in it, I at least like the dialogue. I think is clever and it's trying to, I think, push us towards the end of something. So I appreciate the way that is written. Also, the only other thing I wanted to mention about this issue is that there is an editor's note that says
that there is, and I got it. time in my trade, which is so rare.
It doesn't show up in the trades usually, so that is
It
rare.
usually does not.
So the editor's note says, it's from Jamie. It says, Perpetua turned them into a throne. Talking about like the other evil villain characters like Cheetah and some of these other characters, Brainiac. It says, Perpetua turned them into a throne. See Justice League number 36 for the grisly details. And I thought, turn them into a throne? What does that mean? And it means exactly what you think it means. So I looked it up in Justice League number 36. Perpetua takes the Brainiac in that issue and literally transforms him into a chair and then puts all the other villains inside the chair. So she literally does make them into a throne.
Huh. Okay.
And I thought, wow, that's weird.
That's really strange. She just kind of shoved them in there. I recently just bought a empty ottoman that we've been filling with old clothes, and that's what she did to the villains. I feel like if I bought that empty ottoman, I unzipped it and I said, "Get in there, Cheetah." Brutal. Just brutal stuff.
It's real weird. But it is a thing that happens. So the editor's note was pretty spot on. Like
it told you what it was about. Yeah.
it was exactly what you thought. Also in Justice League 36, I thought you might enjoy this. So there's a group of characters that are hanging outside the Hall of Justice. Guess who's dead center in the front?
It's our boy Commandy.
Yeah, Commandy shows up. So I don't know if this was in conjunction with the Tomorrowverse in any way.
Oh,
There was a
maybe.
lot of there's Commandy. Monsieur Mallah and the Brain were not part of the Tomorrowverse. They're part of My Adventures with Superman. But I did think it was interesting that like Commandy shows up here. A lot of these characters we keep intersecting with. Yeah.
I feel like it's more like they retroactively they went to the future, not retroactively. They time skipped to the future. They listened to the podcast. They were like, okay, let's go put them in.
Supergirl Radio really likes.
This is from a while back. They're like, in the future, Supergirl Radio. They love Commandy. They love Monsieur Mallah and the Brain. We got to give them little treats in this story.
So we did get some Commandy in Justice League number 36. So pretty confusing for the most part, but did see some things that were kind of interesting and I did find interesting.
In the future, when we see Perpetua's throne, we will know that several villains have just been shoved into there. Like stuffing.
And it will make sense to us, sort of.
We'll get it. We'll get if in the next issue Cheetah breaks out of that throne, we'll understand where that came from.
Yeah, we'll be like, we know exactly what's happening here.
Aha, we'll say. Knowingly.
So, Morgan, was there anything else that you wanted to talk about with this issue, or did you have any kind of overall final thoughts?
I did have one quick question. So at the end, Lex gets in his Lexo suit. I don't know if this is true, but it looks like the Lexo suit has gotten bigger. Now that he believes in himself, it's gotten chunkier.
He's relying on his Lex Luthor-ness.
Yes, he's like, oh yeah, I know I can do it because I'm Lex Luthor, and the Lexo suit was like, I can do it too, and got bigger. I don't know. That's just sort of my headcanon. But he has his own villains to fight the infected superheroes, and I wasn't 100% sure I knew who any of them were.
The villains or the superheroes?
The villains. So I think one of them is Solomon Grundy.
Yes.
Because me and the Grund, we go back.
Me and the Grund.
We got fun nicknames for each other. But the rest of them, I wasn't quite sure.
So I think the big towering black and red figure behind Lex in the
that's the one that punches Supergirl, and I was like, huh?
Is that supposed to be Black Manta? It sort of looks like Black Manta to me. Then we have Lobo, who I'm on record for not loving, but he's there. Then we have Solomon Grundy, and then I think the guy in the front in the hood is that Captain Cold? I'm not sure.
Oh, you know what? I think it is Captain Cold because there's like a wall of ice that pops up at some point.
Yes. And then the blue and green character I had to look up because I wasn't familiar with this suit, and I think it's Oracle. I think it's Barbara Gordon somehow taking a villainous turn as Oracle, which is so bizarre. And then there's a little blue guy in between Oracle and Solomon Grundy.
Oh, yeah.
I guess it's supposed to be one of the Guardians from Oa, from Green Lantern.
Huh. Okay.
That's
Sure.
that's who I assumed were these characters.
I like that he was like, I'm going to bet on the villains. And there's just like a bunch of villains I've never seen before. And my boy Solomon Grundy.
He's right there in the middle.
I was like, well, we
Ready
got
to go.
our head hitter. We got Grundy in there and other people as well. And this is why I'm annoyed that he didn't bring a Monsieur Malat in the brain, because it's like, if you're gonna be like, oh, they're not villain tier enough villain for this. It's like, really? And that blue guy is? I don't know him either.
I know Monsieur Malat in the brain better than that blue guy.
Exactly.
I mean, I assume it's a Guardian, but I don't know.
Who knows?
So I guess one of my questions would be, since we're here, so we the infected superheroes all have, except for Supergirl, all have like cool evil nicknames. Do the villains who are now being presented as heroes, who are going up against the Batman Who Laughs, do they get like cool superhero names? Like, what's the opposite of that? Do they get cool hero names?
It's Grundy time. Maybe they all just get like catchphrases. They've all been workshopping them. Sort of like, okay, and then I'm gonna say mine, okay, but you can't step on my you can't step on my toes.
You gotta wait till I'm finished with mine.
Wait until I say it's Grundy time. And then you can say blue guy, you can just announce yourself. It would be great if they had superhero names, but like, honestly, some of the superhero names and the supervillain names sound kind of the same. So, I mean, it's not like Deathbringer, but sometimes your supervillain name is Kara Zor-El. So.
They really peaked at Deathbringer.
It was all downhill after Deathbringer. King Tyrant.
Sky Tyrant and King Shazam.
Sky Tyrant.
And Scarab, yes.
Mine and Gab says in the chat, all of this craziness just because you wanted to see what happened to Kara in between issues, which is a great segue into a comment I started from earlier in the chat from Stanley, who says, what did Supergirl do in this issue? and boy, Stanley, I'm so glad that you asked, because she didn't do a whole lot, is the thing.
She was only, I think, in one panel.
She was in two. She attacks, and then she gets hit in the face by what we think might be
Black Manta, maybe?
Black Manta. We're not sure, but she just gets hit in the face by a giant fist. Cool.
Yeah, she's just with the other infected superheroes, and that's it.
That's pretty much all. We've covered Supergirl. If we were just going through sort of issues on like what Supergirl is doing, it could have been like a 2-minute podcast, and it could be like, and then she gets punched.
Maybe in the future, maybe that's what we do.
Well, they'll be like really quick ones.
So Supergirl was in this one for a real quick amount of time. Did not do much. End of story.
Technically, she was there though.
She was in this issue.
We did see our girl. Not going great for her, but we saw her.
So that is kind of where we are with Year of the Villain Hell Arisen number 3. So we'll see what happens in this grand finale in issue number 4 for next time. We'll see what goes down.
I'm excited to see how they de-infect them, because I have to keep the faith that is going to happen in this last issue. I have to believe it's going to happen.
We don't have time to read another comic book series. We've got other things to do.
I simply will not read any more in this genre.
This infected storyline needs to wrap it up.
Wrap it up. Ready to end. But I am excited to see how they get uninfected because I have to believe it will happen in the next issue.
So I wonder if Lex in the Lexo suit, maybe he already has like an antidote or something. Because he's got all the infected superheroes like right there.
He does. I feel like that's what's going to end up happening is that all the superheroes are attacking and he's going to use something in order to like de-infect them, which will really mess up the Batman Who Laughs plan. And then I guess then Perpetua wins and we're all dead. But we all get stuffed into a couch or something. But at least they're all uninfected. I don't know.
I don't know where this storyline is going, but I hope it's going towards a finish line for Supergirl so we can jump out of here.
I hope it doesn't end with Supergirl getting stuffed into like a giant love seat in the sky. That's sort of my sincerest wish and hope for her.
Here is my suggestion. If it doesn't wrap up in issue number 4, let's look up like a Wikipedia article.
Let's just cliff notes this.
and then we'll move on to get back to finish Rebirth.
I like that a lot.
Okay, all right, we'll do it. We've given this
that's our guarantee to you is that we will softly give up.
We will cheat our way out of it if we have to. So that is, I think that's a great way to end this episode of the discussion discussion of the issue. So that is going to do it for this episode of Supergirl Radio. If you'd like to contact us, you can post a comment on our website at supergirlradio.com. You can email us at supergirlradio@gmail.com. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on X and Instagram, all at Supergirl Radio. If you like what we do, we encourage you to give us a rating and write us a review on Apple Podcasts or anywhere that you listen to your podcasts. Supergirl Radio is part of the DCTV Podcast and Multiverse of Color Network. So if you want to go check those out, we encourage you to do so. You can hang out with us as we go live and wired on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern on the DCTV Podcast YouTube channel. And we will bring you into our live chat and we can hang out. DCTV Podcast also has a TeePublic store. So if you're in need of any DC TV or DC Comics related t-shirts, tank tops, sweatshirts, magnets, tote bags, pins, phone cases, pillows, or stickers, go to supergirlradio.com and click on the TeePublic store link at the top of the page.
And since we joked about creating them, we now have a Just Here for Supergirl design in the DC TV Podcast TeePublic store that we would like to suggest.
I think we should keep promoting this.
I really like it in the hat version. I got to be honest.
There's hats, there's hoodies, there's long sleeve shirts, there's sweatshirts, there's tote bags, there's stickers, there's buttons. All kinds of stuff.
However, you'd like to tell people that you're just here for Supergirl, we have that available.
There's even a pillow if you want to carry a pillow around. You can do that as well. But I think I'm going to buy all of them.
It's got to be all over your house, just every room.
I'm going to get it in every form possible. But yeah, so we definitely have some designs in here that are pretty cool. And I think we'll try to add some more as we continue to go on towards the Woman of Tomorrow movie. Well, I think we still owe a listener a Nasty Luther design, so we'll have to figure out what we want to do for Nasty Luther. But we'll continue to try to make, because I think as a Supergirl fan, it's frustrating sometimes because there's not a lot of good Supergirl stuff out there. There's the occasional t-shirt you might get from DC Comics or superherostuff.com, but I feel like we can fill in the gap for Supergirl fans for like really fun, unique designs. So I think that's where we can bring in some Nasty Luther merch. Nobody else is doing Nasty Luther merch.
That is very true.
So maybe we can fill that gap for people. So if you have any requests on designs or things that maybe we could do like a Comet the Super Horse shirt. I think we should. That's a great idea. I just came up with that idea. We should workshop that.
We gotta hold it down for Comet. We got to figure out what the Comet shirt is going to say. But our guarantee to you is that if there's just sort of a minor character that nobody's ever heard of, we'll make a shirt for you.
Should we do a Monsieur Malat and the Brain shirt?
Yes. I'm just here for Monsieur Malat and the Brain.
We could do a whole series.
A
It's
whole
the just here for this character.
And it's
Just
like
here for calling it the Super
weirdest,
Horse.
the weirdest characters no one's ever heard of.
Just here for Snapper Car.
I'm just here for a snapper car, and then there's like little snapping hands in the background. Listen,
I think this could be a whole
I've only
series.
got that one catchphrase, just like grunty time. I'm just gonna use it.
Can we just do a shirt that says Daddy-O?
Yeah, Daddy, but with the snaps.
Yeah.
I would wear that too.
I would do that. So we'll try to work on some new stuff as we go along. We would also like to thank our legion of super sponsors for supporting the Supergirl Radio Patreon. These people are Michael, Anne Marie, Yvonne, Nicola, Abby, Miriam, Nicole, Brian, Ethan, Majuba, Annie, Rachel, and Kit. So if you would also like to become a legion of super sponsor, you can visit our page at patreon.com/Supergirl Radio. Actually, just to plug some stuff we've been doing on the Patreon lately, we reviewed the classic Jeannot Vark, Christopher Reeve, and Jane Seymour film Somewhere in Time. A real unique take on the concept of time travel. So highly recommend that discussion. If you want a high quality Supergirl Radio review that is both thought-provoking and entertaining, I really recommend that you join the Supergirl Radio Patreon.
I think it's great. I think if you were a Legends of Tomorrow fan and you're like really into time travel, but you don't really care so much if it makes sense, this is the one for you. You should absolutely watch the movie and then join the Patreon so that you can listen to our review of it, because boy, when I tell you you're not going to be able to guess how they time travel, I really mean it. I could never in a million years would I have guessed their method of time travel.
Or did he time travel at all?
Dun dun dun.
So you're gonna have to become a Legion of Super sponsor and join the level to get the review. We do movie and TV show reviews. And sometimes we just chat about the things that are happening in our lives, the places we go and things we do. So if you're interested in catching up with more Supergirl Radio, in addition to our weekly podcasts, that is a way you can do that and support the podcast and what we do here. So thank you to everybody who already does that. If you would like to follow me on the interwebs, you can find me on the platform Vero True Social at Derby Kid, where I post about music I'm listening to, movies or TV shows I've watched, books if I get a chance to read, books I've read. So that's a place where I share kind of the things that I've been doing lately. You can check me out on Instagram at The Derby Kid, where I post the occasional picture there. And you can check out my personal YouTube channel at youtube.com/StuckBeltProd. You can see some of my travel adventures at Oasis Broom on the social medias and YouTube. So those are all the places where you can find me.
Nice. And you can find me on the various platforms at Mojotastic. And you can also find me as a co-host on the Legendary Ladies podcast, where we came back from our winter break and we had a really fun interview with the author Fiona Fenn about her new romantic fantasy, aka romantasy book. The Crack at the Heart of Everything, which she's actually working on book 2. So we got to ask her a little bit about, what might be coming up. But we end up talking about not just the novel, but also just some publishing things and things about how the publishing industry is going and querying and self-publishing versus publishing. So it was a really fun interview if you're a reader or you like those genres, or even if you just kind of want to know a little bit more about publishing. I think it's a great interview, and you should check it out at The Legendary Ladies on YouTube or on your podcast app. And you can also check us out on Instagram and X at The Legendary Ladies or at Legends_podcast.
Cool. It's always fun to learn more about the process from creative people and how they do the things that they do. I always find that it gives me a good appreciation for those things because then I learn about, oh, well, this is actually kind of something intentional that someone does. This is not just something that just happens. They make choices on these things. So that is always fun to learn more about that kind of process. So very cool. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Supergirl Radio. But until next time, I'm still Rebecca Johnson.
And I'm still Morgan Glennon. And we look forward to reading more Supergirl comics.
McGurk! I love typing.
Not mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira. I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom, because
she looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. So fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Yeah!